Well, welcome to Common Farm. It's a sunny Saturday in November, so I thought we'd have a little tour of the farm and you can see what's going on in November here in southwest England in Somerset. Welcome to new viewers. I'm amazed that we have more than 12,000 subscribers. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining in the story. And before I go any further, I think it's really worth explaining particularly how we work. Flower farming as a way to make a business from home has exploded as an activity over the last 10-15 years. The local market for flowers is much bigger than it was when we started in 2010, and it is a great way to use your garden, your land, to grow a crop that you can sell to your neighbours, but also that will feed your environment. It is absolutely fantastic. But it's also really important, I think, that we're really clear about who we are, because I do appreciate that, what with all our various social media platforms, we and our mailing list and everything, we hit over 100,000 people a month, Common Farm Flowers. And it's really important that you understand that we are a minute micro business. This business employs me, my husband Fabrizio, we're both full-time, and then we have my neighbour Sue, who does 10 hours weeding a week between February and November. That's it. And then Nicola, who a lot of you will have come across if you've done workshops online or here at the farm, then you will have been in contact with Nicola, who is my kind of right-hand woman, but she works remotely and is also freelance, so she does a certain number of hours a month for me. Thank you, Nicola. And she's only here maybe one day a month, not even every month, so very tight. And then we have a bookkeeper, obviously, to help me, because I don't trust my mathematics, so it's important that we have a bookkeeper. But that's it. It's a 7-acre patch, and we aim to have a crop from the 1st of April to the 30th of September, and it's taken me 12 years to get to this stage. I've always wanted to be a kind of between the equinoxes flower farmer, the sunny side of the equinoxes. If I started afresh, I might call myself the equinox flower farmer. So I'm not fighting to have a crop through the winter. I do have some things through the winter. And also what we're growing is very specific. We're growing bouquets for my local bouquet market and mixed buckets for weddings. That's our core business. That's what we're growing. So I don't have fields of sunflowers or acres and acres of dahlias. I'm not growing 7 million gladioli. I have not scaled up my business to that level, and it is a choice that I have made. We have during COVID, we used to do bouquets by post, by courier. We would send them all around the UK by courier. And it was a great little business. It was really, flourishing. And along came the pandemic, and that business went through the roof. And of course I had no help, because we chose to really close down. So it was just me cutting and arranging these flowers, and it became an absolute monster. And so I suddenly, one day, over a year after the beginning of, so late spring 2021, I said, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not sending the bouquets by post. So the reason I'm telling you this is so that you understand what kind of a business we are. And if you are feeling inspired to grow flowers, to possibly farm your garden, to possibly think about growing flowers as a business, what I want you to do is not look at us as an example of how you have to do it. I would like you to look at us and think of us as an example of how it can be done. So we chose to keep the business very lean. we chose to keep the number of people involved very small, and therefore what we can do on a daily basis is limited. We could have got in 5 people to help me do the mail order bouquet business, and we would then have had to scale up the growing in order to be able to do more to pay the salaries of the people who were, you've got to scale up. When your costs go up like that, you've got to scale up your business to do that. And we chose not to. We could have done. You do not have to grow your business to be enormous. What we chose to do is to frequently, possibly twice a year, possibly more often, we assess all the time what it is that the business is doing well, how much we're enjoying it, whether we can pay our bills, and what we'd like to do in the years ahead. So I really like growing flowers, and I'm good at it. So I'm going to keep growing flowers. I really like buckets and posies weddings. I love them. I think that's exactly how all weddings should be buckets and posies weddings, by which I mean I'll make mixed buckets, and my customers will have 5 or 6 mixed buckets and do their own table centres and their own arrangements, and I make the bride's bouquets, the buttonholes, the bridesmaids posies, and sometimes a bit of a wow factor bit. But really, that's what I prefer to do. There are lots of people out there who do wonderful luxury wedding flowers, and I supply some of those with flowers, so that's very good. That's my pleasure as well. But that's their job. I'm going to be the buckets and posies lady, and I'm going to do lots of local flowers. I do increasing amounts of wholesale, but even my wholesale is limited in quantity. And the reason I want to keep it like that is so that then I'm free to do other stuff when opportunities come along. Like the other day, I went and gave talks and demos at Wisley at their Dahlia Day, which is my pleasure. And it was fun. And I could do it because I wasn't bogged down in a business that required me to be somewhere else doing something else. So while my business is smaller, I could have a bigger business, but I have a smaller business and I'm sort of freer. I could have more money in my pocket, but I have a smaller business and I'm sort of freer. I'm really looking forward next week after next. I'm off up to the Garden Media Guild Awards lunch, for example. I'm a member of the Garden Media Guild, and which is a great fun thing, very mutually supportive organisation, all good things. And they invited me to be a judge of one of their categories, which was really fun. If my business were bigger, I wonder if I would be free to do to be so opportunistic about the things that come along. Anyway, I just thought it was really important to sort of share with you, because I don't want you to start looking at my YouTube clips and think this is how all flower farms are. This is not how all flower farms are. What this is a flower farm that is lean, very tidy, hyper organised, in order for me to be free to do the fun stuff. Anyway, right, lecture over. Let's go and have a look and see what's going on. Lovely sunny day, much better mood all round. I'm fine in the sunshine. Let's have some of that vitamin D. Oh, right, come on. I'll show you what I've got. So the beds here, this patch is where all our everything that's grown from seed is, and you can see that our paths are very wide, and that's because we have lots of students and visitors through the year, and we want to make it so that it looks really, really nice. It is a waste of space. We could easily, there are 5 beds here, we could easily have 6. So it's wasteful but attractive. You can see that I've got this Chinese forget-me-not is opportunistically flowering in these warm November days. It's a bad warmth, shouldn't be so warm. And also this lovely wild carrot in full flower, which equally shouldn't be there. But around the place I've got my biennials coming along for flowering in the spring. This is sweet rocket, and interspersed it has self-sown nigella. This is nigella, the froth here, and then this different froth is a Californian poppy. I should really whip the Californian poppy out because I don't tend to use it in floristry, but the nigella is very useful. And you can see the size of the sweet rocket. They are going to be tall and flower relatively early spring. And when they're finished, the nigella will come along and take their place. So I'm going to leave the nigella, and that's all fine. Over here I've got my Sweet William. Here is new Sweet William. And there is last year's Sweet William, which I've left in the ground for another year. And here is my least favourite weed. And I'm going to scoop it out. If you're a flower farmer, there are certain weeds which are your worst enemies. I'm going to have to go round, I can't reach it. And this is a great enemy, this weed. Oh, I see. Sorry, I've got something in the way. And it's my microphone. So I'm just going to whip out. This is groundsel, this horrible little person going to seed here. And luckily for me, I was taught by my mother to weed by the yard as a child. And I can spot a groundsel seedling at 200 yards. It's the bane of my life. It'll go to seed, if you weed it, it'll go to seed sitting on the side waiting to go into the compost heap. So mostly here in the ground we've got biennials for next year. We've got some nice mulched beds. We mulch our beds well between working them. These are Canterbury bells. But then also, and there's quite a lot of self-sown, for example, this person, that is a Chinese forget-me-not. In between these are wallflowers. And I kind of leave them to fight their way through the winter. I don't count them as a crop that I've got. They may not survive. And this, for example, is also a self-sown Levatera tree mallow, which is an annual. And I'll leave it. If it survives the winter, good luck to it. If it doesn't, I haven't planned to have it anyway. So between the beds, there are either lots and lots of biennials ready to go in, ready to flower in the spring, and some of this will be filled with the tulips, which are arriving on Tuesday. And when the tulips are in, this patch will be sort of tidied up and left for the winter. I inadvertently had a rush of blood to the head the other day, and I planted some veg. So that bed there is full of veg, which I haven't grown veg for years, but I feel like I need to try and control the situation a bit. Look at that sunshine. Right, moving on. It's been a really incredible year for the crab apples, and a lot of these will go in my Christmas wreath decorating. This is red sentinel, this crab apple, and you can see how good it'll be in a Christmas wreath. And we have a lot of willow here, and you can see how the leaves are nearly off these brightly coloured stems. Most of this has been sold and will be delivered as a big order to London in a week or so. But some of it I will keep for my wreathing. Look at that colour. Isn't it fantastic? Salix alba is this orange. And we have the whole of the edge of the plot has been edged with willow for cutting. And every year we cut the willow, and then you see the bobbly shape where we've pollarded it. Every year we pollard it, and you can imagine what a home that makes for invertebrates through the winter, and therefore the birds. It's like a bird larder. we don't mow in the winter, but look, and for lots of good reasons. Look, wild carrot coming up in the grass. There's a little patch of it which has been flowering here, and if I don't mow it, I'll have it in the spring. It's worth not mowing too keenly in the winter, because if you don't mow, A, you won't damage the grass by walking on it too much, but B, there's somewhere for the wildlife to live. Lots of mice can live in the grass, and therefore the mice will give the owls something to eat. Look, there's my tripod standing there. I spend my life not using the tripod, carrying it around and not using it. Right, so the big polytunnel, this is the big polytunnel. These are all seedlings of hardy annuals and some weeds. So what I will be doing after I have planted the tulips and after I have planted the ranunculus and the sweet peas, I will rationalise this mix into blocks of different varieties for my flowering in the spring. And this is why I don't really mind too much about those self-sown hardy annuals outside, because I've got the same again in here. If the ones outside survive, I'll keep them. If they don't, I'm okay. This tunnel needs washing, as you can see, and that's a winter job. Underneath this bog sage and Verbena bonariensis, which I leave standing until late winter, are lots of spring bulbs. But I'll leave them because imagine the forage this gives to the birds and the bees. Look at the colour of that bog sage. It's worth it. Worth having it just so that you can come and bathe in the blue. It's November. It should be over. This is all wrong. Here in the greenhouse, not an enormous amount, some sweet peas, pelargonium cuttings, which have taken really nicely. Do you remember that clip I made a while ago? You can see they've all got roots coming out of the bottom, coming along nicely. I'll just leave them there. And if it comes on to freeze, I will protect them. But at the moment, it's really quite warm. Sprouting ranunculus. I've got my ranunculus workshop next Friday, which is why I've got them. I wouldn't normally have them in so early. I like my ranunculus quite late because I'm a flower farmer that has a crop from the 1st of April. So I like my ranunculus to come almost after my tulips. So these have really been sprouted just for the workshop. I mean, I'll have them because I like them, but they're not really majorly part of my crop. This garden is as much a teaching garden as it is a flower farm. It plays both roles very nicely. Here's the wildflower meadow. It doesn't look much at the moment, but if I take you into it, you can see when I put the camera in the right way that actually the green sward is not just lawn, it's full of different plants, and these are perennial wildflowers overwintering for next year. And up here is a stake where Fabrizio has hung the seed heads of his wild orchids so that they are distributed around the place by the wind. He does this every year and it works very well. When we came here, we had no orchids, and now we have a great many. See if I dare walk across without getting shouted at. Try not to step on anything. There. So that's a great way to distribute the seed. Look at the way the mushrooms, you know when you get circles of mushrooms, look, there's a circle of mushrooms going around this oak tree, and that's a sign of healthy mycorrhiza. They will be having a relationship with that tree, romantic relationship. There's the oak tree and a circle of mushrooms coming up around its base. Do you remember this very empty pond that I put in a clip about dry ponds earlier this year? At some point you could see the cracks in the bottom. It was completely empty. Well, we've had some rain and it's looking better. That's just rain, we have not filled it. Here's the dahlia patch, and the dahlias are all up. I need to just edge those beds and mulch them, ready for next year. This ride here is being redone, and we're going to redo the fencing. The deer are getting in, and so that's going to be the big expense of the winter, is redoing the fencing. More dahlia beds here. We don't have huge amounts. I grow about 250 dahlia plants in 3 beds. The end. There's still great colour at the edge of what we call the lug fall. And in front of me here is another wildflower patch. For us, it's very, very important that half the space should be wild and managed for wildflowers and wildlife, and only half, or less than half, is used as a cut flower farm. So it's a 7-acre patch, and about half of it is flower farm. Here's my project, sitting there, looking hopeful. Project number 7,653,442 here at Common Farm. It's an endless project. And this patch up here is ideally supposed to be full of shrubs and perennials. I think it needs to be a bit colder before we prune the roses, don't you? Those hydrangea limelight have been amazing this year. I cut them and cut them and cut them and cut them, and still they've got flower heads. They do need watering in the summer if you have a very hot patch like we did, because otherwise the stems get brittle and the heads just snap off. But with water, they do very well. So there you have the November flower farm. We've lifted the dahlias. We have yet to plant the tulips. We're sprouting ranunculus. As soon as it gets colder, it's not cold enough yet, we will prune the roses with a hedge trimmer. All of our beds will be mulched to the depths of 2 inches at least over the winter, to which end I have 4 tons of compost delivered from Dalefoot, sitting in my yard waiting for the big moment. And I just work kind of in order. I remember reading somewhere once, somebody interviewed a chap who was a gardened 7 acres on their own, and they said, how do you do it? And he said, I just do one job at a time. And I thought that was such incredible advice. I've never forgotten it. So even if I could be doing little jobs or a little bit of a job, I don't. I'm not allowed to start the next big job until the first one is finished. And that way I do get everything done. Next weekend, most of the willow will be harvested for delivery to London. I've got the rest of my Christmas decorations workshops. Do have a look at the website. you may be inspired to join me. And then I will be making my wreath orders at the beginning of December, pushing on through to Christmas with a couple of big Christmassy commissions. Although my season officially finished at the end of September, but you've got to keep your hand in, haven't you? And I've got a tiny little wedding. So things to join in with if you'd like to. I've got a winter wedding workshop coming up on the 28th or 29th of November, which if you're interested in that sort of thing, it might be helpful for you. I'm doing it because I think I will order in all my flowers will come in from my colleagues in Cornwall. And the process and the management of that is very different from my usual way of just making a cutting list and going out and cutting what I want. So there'll be a combination of ordered in flowers and foliage and twigs and things that I've cut from here. So I thought it would be a useful workshop for people who don't grow all their flowers, but who would be possibly interested in, how the mechanics work, ordering in and making an amazing looking wedding out of ordered in British grown. We only ever use British grown flowers. So it's a different sort of mindset and it's a different approach. So I thought it would make a good workshop. So by all means, please do book a place on that if you're interested. I've still got my Christmas tablescape workshop coming up. All the wreath workshops are available to order as downloads on the website. And if you're interested in making a micro business work for you, then do think about our lifestyle business workshop and our business workshops for next year. Because I think the question is not how much can you make. The question is how much do you need? I've just spent this week, one of the people who rang up, and I was interviewed by a marketing agency who look after Clavio, who supply our mailing list. And they wanted to talk to me about how we use our mailing list, how successful it is, whether we're making the most out of it, and so on. So that was fun. It was a really interesting interview. And one of the questions they asked was what we're going to do for Black Friday. And of course, we do nothing for Black Friday. We don't engage with Black Friday at all. We step away from Black Friday. I'm not discounting anything. I'm a tiny business and I have worked out exactly how much I need to sell my product for in order to make what another business colleague of mine, who I really recommend you look up, and I think she's about to really give YouTube a bit of a go. And I honestly, I've been an admirer of hers for a very, very long time. And her name is Jane Lindsey, and she has a business called Snapdragon. I think it's Snapdragon Online. I'll link it in the linky bit, in the blurby bit. And she, like me, is feeling a bit bamboozled by the way that social media has become rather chaotic. And that's one of the reasons that we've both kind of stepped onto the YouTube platform. One, because we both know what we're talking about, so we have plenty to say, and so possibly, we can say what we've got to say in a slightly more measured way than perhaps some of the spangly jangly stuff that goes on elsewhere. But also because both of us are very conscious of the word that she made me think about very differently, and that word is enough. She was the one who said to me that she looks at other businesses and she thinks they haven't worked out what is their enough. And I think that word is so valuable. What is your enough? So if you're interested, do come on one of my business workshops, a lifestyle business, or the career change flower farming, and I'll help you work out I'll help you understand that question and make a business that works around it. So thanks very much for all my subscribers. 12,000+ is a good number. I'm very grateful. I hope you've enjoyed this little tour of the flower farm. I'm afraid it's been rather wordy, but you know, I had things to get off my chest, and it's a nice place to do that. I like YouTube because people can turn it off or fast forward through the bits they're bored with and get to another place. If any of the tips and tricks have been handy along the way, or you would just like to support the channel, you can always buy me a coffee. The link to coffee buying is in the blurb to all my clips. If you haven't come across us before, please do subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon, and we'll tell you when we've got more clips coming out. And thank you very much for watching. I'll see you soon.